Mike's all. Why is the mute not working? Hello? Haha. Hello?
Yeah, this one. No. No. Hello?
Oh, there we go. Very, very gracefully done there. No, that's not how we do it. Turn it down. Yeah! Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fusion. It's great to be back. I'm sure that a lot of you are miserable that I'm back on stage. Hello, I'm Jim. For contractual reasons, I can't say where I work because of our sponsors, but more on them later. Who likes Greek gyros? Let's give a big hand to them. Who hopefully managed to get them? Everybody? If anyone, yeah, it's actually, is anyone hungry? Because I think we're slowly working on that to get more. Has everyone eaten? Okay, we're looking fine. Everyone except me. Right. So, first of all, big shout out to our sponsors. Obviously, we can't do this without our sponsors, so I'm going to invite my podcast host friend Mike Elsmore to come on stage to talk about InfoBip.
Yeah, I made my life easier by having the other mic. Hi, we're the only sponsor of this evening, so if you want to give sponsorship, please talk to us all afterwards. There'll be another bit about it in a moment. Hi, hands up, who has heard of InfoBip? Oh, yeah, we are now an official award winner.
I'm your competitor.
You also won the awards last time. All right, so for half the room that have already heard this bit, sorry, for the other half who haven't, we are a communications platform. We do text messaging, email, MMS, RCS, WhatsApp, etc. 18 different kinds of sending a message, and that's it. We are here in the Birmingham community because I am and we love you people. So we will see you later. Toodles.
Yeah! Thank you very much. I'm InfoBip. Right. Also, I didn't add that normally, for some people that have seen me do the intro for Fusion, normally do some horrendous, convoluted joke, and there's not enough time. Which is probably saving everyone a lot of time, which is good. This one's quite apparent. We can't do it without our sponsors, so sponsor us. There's lots of people here. Some people might have money. If you're a massive multinational company, you probably have no money, but local Birmingham ones might have money. But we are always on the lookout for sponsors. Please sponsor us. We need it. This space does not come cheap. Talking of which, also other things. If anybody saw the inspirational thing at the TechMids conference last year when Stuart Langridge got on stage, he did his, what's that thing, the sunflowers? No, don't put sun cream on. What is it? Sunscreen. Never wear sunscreen. That one from 1997. Oh, God, I can't remember it. That was... I did it just to embarrass you. So, yes, his whole inspirational talk is, if you don't think you've got a talk, you probably do. Everyone's got a talk in them. We need talks. We need people to speak. If you want to know anything more, you want more inspiration or how to actually approach speaking, speak to someone on the team, speak to someone that we know. There's Mike's trolling me at the back with something, but I can't hear him. We need bloggers, because we've got a blog. We need sponsors. We need speakers. Please talk to me about speaking, because we need more speakers in the local tech ecosystem, and that'll become apparent with the next slide. Please tweet about things we like to have a buzz so that people know we're doing it. I have put a hashtag which involves the platform that hashtag is aimed at, which I don't know what it's called this week. But if there's other things like Mastodon or Blue Sky, also use that as well. That would be really nice. We love to get a bit of buzz going. We have this partner scheme. The reason why I could drop in Sill's thing is because Cryogenics is one of our partners. But Go to Future on that in a minute, and Birmingham Design Festival, and I have lots of interesting things to talk to Birmingham Design Festival about merchandise, which will be quite cool. We're basically linked with TechMids, which means that we're also linked with all the other meetups in the local ecosystem. If you don't know about any of them, I'm going to tell you some of the ones that are coming up. If you want to know more about them, talk to people like me, or Hannah, or Alistair, who is somewhere, or Mike, or I don't know, or Stuart, etc. We've got one meetup organizer here, which is Dan. More on Brum PHP in a minute. But TechMids, Coffee Ops, Code Bar, Ryan's here tonight. Brum AI, Atanas might be here, I'm not sure. Brum PHP, Manage Ops, more on that in a minute. We've got .NET and Xamarin, Dave's back, and Ryan, and we have DevOps, and DevOps is happening in advanced tomorrow, in a couple of days, and it's massively overprescribed because loads of people like it. Golang still going in Brum.js. Some of you might have been at Brum.js, where Brum.js has got 200 people and is one of the most attended local meetups in the country. Go Brum. Talking of Brum, this this is very important. We have our conference, and we've kind of pulled out all of the stops thanks to Birmingham Tech Week and Tech WM. It is not at Millennium Point, it's at the International Conference Centre. And if I told you how much it costs to have a room at the International Conference Centre, you would cry. And it's probably why the Tories can afford it. Please scan that. Because if you scan that, you get a discount and you can get a ticket for 15 quid with that. We have a superstar lineup, apart from me. We have a great lineup. Please come. If you are a meetup group attendee, or you run one and you haven't contacted us about getting a free booth for the conference, please come and see me, because we're here to also promote you to have a booth. So yes, that's upcoming events. Code Bar. Code Bar is happening at Bluetel in, where is it? Near the Great Western Arcade. There's Ryan, he's put his hand up. That's on the 26th of September. If people don't know, Code Bar is for people from underestimated backgrounds, and you can come and just turn up for free and have a bit of food, and people will actually mentor you, and it's absolutely awesome. So there is Code Bar on the 26th. Next, Brum PHP is on the 28th of October. If you want to know a bit more about that, speak to Dan, who is just there at Jump24, who sponsored. They own it. Very important, this, you'll see that there's a logo there for anyone from PHP land or elsewhere who spotted Lamborghinis. The two of the core Laravel team members are both speaking on the bill, and they're both the UK-based ones, which is pretty impressive, I'd say. If you want to learn some stuff that's pretty cool, even if you're not from PHP land, and by the way, I'm a PHP dev, so I'm really biased, it's awesome, come and see that. Next up, we've got .NET and Xamarin. That's on the 11th of October. We had this slide last time because it's been known for quite a while, but on the 11th, we've got Dylan Beattie, the rock star himself, who has spoken at this event. You don't really want to miss Dylan when he speaks because he's awesome, so come to that. Manage Ops, we don't have an exact date at the moment, but just so everyone knows, Manage Ops is coming back. And I attended a couple of these, and Manage Ops is very much in demand, and it's a brilliant event run by Steve, who can't be here, and Matt Andrews, so I haven't seen him. So there's that. Brum AI is happening on the 17th of October. I think that's running as part of Birmingham Tech Week. Again, I don't know if Atanas or anyone to do Brum AI is here. Silent. Oh, no, that was just Luke working with you. And very, very important, well, as Tom Goodman screams at the back, another very important thing whilst I was pitching the conference for Tech Mids, this is now one of the most unique hackathons left in the UK, in that it's got safeguarding so that under 18s can do it, and it's overnight. Hack the Midlands is going for its 8th time, and it's absolutely amazing. They need people to sign up. They need sponsors. They need all the same things that we're asking for the Tech Mids conference. So, Hack the Midlands, put that in your diary. Very important. There is a code of conduct. The code of conduct is sort of be nice to people and don't judge them on their race or their sexuality, etc., etc. We do have a proper one, but if you want to look at the proper one, it's there. I can't read it out in full, but if you feel like there is a violation, then come to one of the people that are wearing Fusion t-shirts, or Hannah, who's wearing her funky jumpsuit. I love your jumpsuit. And we will take the appropriate action, which involves, taking someone out of the space, because we want a safe space. You don't want to, this is the reason why there are no jokes. You don't come to see me ramble at all, because no one wants that. So let's get on with the actual professionals. First up, we have Angie Marr, who is the co-founder of Faculty, and I was a bit nosy. Some interesting stuff for me personally while I was looking around the open source stuff that you've got knocking around. So it's all like, there's a lot of AI and data science stuff, but there's some open source Python libraries, some Jupyter Notebook stuff like plugins, which is really cool. R, my wife is like a big user of R, and I don't understand what she does because it's maths, but it looks amazing. Anyway, rather than rabbiting on, we're going to hear about real world applications in AI. So please, everybody, give a warm Fusion welcome to Angie. Do you want the clicker?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. just try this. Oh. Okay, it looks like I've got my first technical issue here, but you know what? I'm going to carry on. Oh, it works. Brilliant. Magic. Cool. How are you all? Good, good, good. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd love to get to know you a little bit. Can I have a show of hands? Like, what role you play? Are you a developer? How many developers here? Okay, software engineer, developers, designers. 0 designers. Okay. Data scientists. 0 data scientists. Okay. Oh, there's one. Oh, okay. You're gonna get a bit lonely there. Yeah. First of all, I really thank you for having me, because I actually went to school in Worcester, and I used to come to Birmingham all the time. So it's always a lovely place for me to come back and an excuse to meet up friends and things. So yeah, and it's also wonderful to see how, the community here is really, very vibrant, especially after COVID. So really fantastic. So I'm going to talk a little bit about AI in the real world. Now, everyone nowadays claim that they do AI. So I feel like I need to give a bit of credential why I think, I'm here to talk. So by the way, first of all, disclaimer, I'm actually not a computer scientist. I didn't study machine learning. I am a physicist by training. So I'm an ex-physicist gone to the dark side, and started a company called Faculty about almost 10 years ago. And that's how we started. Now, Faculty now is, well, my marketing team tell me that I need to say it's a leading applied AI firm, and we do actually very specialized in applied AI with about just over 300 people. And we have, over the years, deployed more than 400 AI systems to hundreds of customers, both in the public and private sector. We are official data science partner for at least 7 government departments, and we are the first technical partner of OpenAI. So what we do is we do technical system integration for a OpenAI product to make sure that it's evaluated, integrated properly, and make sure that it's safe and functioning well. Great. Okay. And another thing we do very big on is AI safety, and because that's actually what got me into AI 15 years ago. And we have our own AI safety lab since 2016. And we have, well, certainly our own package. And well, unlike, I guess, the large AI research or AI safety research lab, we're very much focused on AI safety for commercial deployment. And so things like how to, explainability of models in commercial context, fairness, privacy, robustness. And one of them will actually come up later, which I think is quite interesting. Okay, so let's talk about real-life application. I think people don't need reminding what happened in the past couple of years. So, 2020, we had COVID. So at the time, if you remember, especially at the first wave of the COVID-19, the NHS was short of everything. Beds, treatment, ventilators, staffing, it was very, very difficult. Well, that's because they were going through a supply chain crisis. So without, it is a completely unprecedented situation, a pandemic that they had to really anticipate and predict what, where they would require beds, staff, equipments for treating people. But given the unprecedented nature of it, it was incredibly difficult to do. And at the same time, what also didn't help is that because of the COVID, there was a knock-on effect of a supply chain issue that we all know about. So it was incredibly difficult to get equipment as well. So it was a double whammy of very difficult to predict where the surge of patient demand was, and very difficult to get equipment and supply. So what we did, we were part of the people responding to the COVID, government COVID response, I think it was called. And we quickly had to put together a big team. So we put together a big team, I think within like a week or something, of 20 people, where we started building the early warning system. So the early warning system, what it does is that it forecasts hospital admissions and also supply chain kind of supply cycle. And it was quite challenging at the beginning, actually, because if you remember, we had lockdown. We had a team of 20 people and working very closely with NHS. And the best way of doing that actually was to working in person, because you have a much higher communication bandwidth, but you have to, and then it was basically a 24-hour job. So the team were like almost taking shifts, and whilst trying to quarantine themselves so that, they were doing testing. So it was actually quite a challenging project in that perspective, but it was very, a good result, because the early warning system then allowed hospital trusts to really sort of forecast what the patient's demand 3 weeks in advance. So just give you a bit of context, what does the scale we're dealing with? Does anyone know how big the NHS is? Okay.
It's like 10% of the population.
Possibly, yeah. I need to brush up my actual number of population. I actually don't know what the population of the UK. Okay, thank you. So it's a few percentage of that. So NHS England itself has more than 1,000 hospitals and has about like 1.5 million employees. So altogether, it's a couple of million employees. And think about the kind of scale of logistical challenge. That is huge. And this arguably, this kind of the most COVID pandemic was the most fast moving crisis, you could say. I mean, for NHS, I think 70 years its history. And the scale of the logistic challenge is probably the largest ever since World War II for a single organization. So that's the kind of scale we're dealing with that. So, managing that whole supply chain and network is quite challenging. And the early warning system, what it does, it has lots of features. I'm not going to walk through a feature like specification, but one thing is that then thousands of frontline NHS workers were able to use the tool, because they were able to see, well, how many likely patients' demands coming in. And it's actually very accurate, because we were congregating a lot of different data sources from positive test cases, from 111 calls, from nearby, all the nearby trusts or hospitals. So it's actually give a fairly high accuracy on prediction. And in fact, over time, it gets more accurate too. And also we would tell the actual confidence level of those predictions. Now, I was saying AI safety, right? Earlier, one thing actually comes into really useful here. So this tool, we believe actually, most of our tool, even as an AI company, I think the best tool in a situation like this is actually how do you equip the human to make the best decisions. So when we do these forecasts, we actually list out what are the biggest determinant of this contributing to this forecast. So people can see, oh wow, it's because there is a nearby this local area has a surge, and so they can start to dig deeper and make decisions about how to move their all their equipments and staffing. Yeah, and so since then, actually, this, watching out time, you're good.
10 minutes in.
Okay, 10 minutes. Okay, great. Halfway in. So since then, the tool is still being used by NHS workers to actually look at how they could manage like COVID treatment needs, which, believe it or not, is still ongoing. But with that, how could they then complement it to the rest of the capacity for like elective care? And then also we expanded out more modules as well. So some of the hospital trusts in Wales, they are using it for A&E management. So management, the operations of A&E, and hopefully improving patient care. So that's one use case, okay? The next one. I didn't mean to come in. I just now when I looked at my computer, I was just like, now I'm going through all case studies of the doom. It's like I think the world is better than that, but I didn't realize it until like just now. I was like, this is done. So I think people do remember these terrorist attacks. So actually, not that long ago, about 5 years. There actually, a lot of these attacks were due to people being, vulnerable people being radicalized online by online propaganda materials. And these materials, unfortunately, are very, very well produced, very, very persuasive. These are not just someone taking a phone and filming around. These are proper production, propaganda productions, and very, very powerful. And at the time, if you remember, the platforms, the different video hosting platforms, they are inundated with this type of terrorist propaganda material. In fact, I think Mark Zuckerberg at the time said that, well, they get 100 million upload a month videos, not propaganda, and they had to use human to like go through. And even if they got it 99% of those check through, you would still have like millions of errors that videos that have gone through. And in fact, I guess terrorist groups, they're also very smart because they know that for the large video hosting platforms, they will have people, moderators checking through. But for the smaller ones, they couldn't. So in fact, you will see the very high concentration of these videos took place in the smaller video hosting platforms. And so the UK government, the Home Office, with these rise of terrorist attacks, they wanted us to see, actually, can we build tools to help platforms to quickly kind of select out these propaganda videos. Now, at the time, those large video hosting platforms, I won't name names here, did say that it's technically very difficult, despite they have really big budget and very big advanced data science team. But anyway, we were tasked to create a system that could do it well, and being very cross-platform, because all platforms need to be able to use it. That was the brief from the Home Office, and also a very high-performing one. Because if you're not doing a kind of substantial next step up, then it's not quite convincing to people that those would be the good tool to use. So we worked on that, and what we did was we did do pretty well in our algorithm and classifier and model, and it became quite actually very good. So typically, previously, the models would only be able to use database type feature to look at previous content, Whereas our algorithm not only could do that, obviously old content, like based on that, but also unseen, like unprecedented videos that come in. And in fact, it could be doing that whilst the videos are uploading. So we could actually pause the upload of those videos. And in terms of performance, so these videos, you want to make sure that it's got high performance, because you want the algorithm when the algorithm thinks the video is terror, that it is, so that you have a very low false positive, as well as, when the video thinks that the video is normal, than it is. So it's actually both are, like, I think one or the other is 99.9%, the other is 94%. So it performs very well. And since then, actually, because of this piece of work, first it has pressured the large hosting platforms to actually do something about it. So now most of them have implemented good algorithm. And second is that this model is actually free. We've given this free to the Global Internet Forum to counter terrorism. And in fact, we're still working through making sure that this model is, well, there are a couple of challenging things for small platform to use still. You need to get the sweet spot of both speed, that is very, very fast, whilst video is uploading. And second is accuracy. You still need that very high performance. And third, you actually need to lower the compute cost. So hence we work with cloud providers and to make sure that the model works really kind of well, and to satisfy that for smaller platforms to use free of charge. Cool. Right. I think I'm on time. I've got one last, hopefully shorter one. So this case study is with our. So we have a couple of business units. So those two one is with the government business unit, and the NHS one was with our healthcare business unit, and this is with our energy transition business unit. So this is a startup called Drift. So Drift is a startup that is looking at creating a new, you could say, asset class for energy. So how they harness energy is using wind, and then it converts to hydrogen. So then the hydrogen then gets back to the port, and you can basically store energy in that sense. So the way they want to do is that they want to prove this concept is 80%, or rather it doubles what the capacity or the efficiency of wind farm. So that's what we did. And the challenge of this, as you can imagine, is first you want the yacht or the boat to really go through very windy places. It's almost like a traveling salesman problem. And at the same time, you want them to have the shortest route once that hydrogen tank is full to go back to the port without like wasting that the tank of hydrogen. So that is a challenge, and I think we have demonstrated with them that certainly in certain seas, so in the Atlantic, they could reach the 80% compared to the 40% of wind farm, and unfortunately at the UK, the English Channel, just slightly less, about 70%. But it's still under development, and what they continue with this work is that they can actually inform their design. So they continue to inform their design to make better design, more like wind kind of better aerodynamics to make sure to continue to increase that efficiency. So as an alternative to wind generation. So I've shared with you 3 different examples. And the reason why I want to share is that actually in data science, there's such a variety. So this is very much research, like very kind of frontier research, working with a startup on pretty untested ground. And the terrorism example is more about specific model and making sure it performs really, really well under certain constraint. And then the first one is actually creating a very, very complex systems and doing really good user testing and as well as kind of system build. So I hope I've highlighted the different kind of data science projects out there. And nope. So actually, before that, I want to say that we are hiring. So if people are interested in working in AI, we are definitely would love to hear from you. And lastly is that many of you might know about the Government AI Safety Summit in November, 1st and 2nd November. Now, we think that actually that is going to be very intergovernmental. So, but AI is such an important topic that we want that to be broadened up and more people talking and having the conversation. So we, amongst many other partners, have created AI Fringe, which will take place for the whole week. So we've got lots of partners, including Responsible AI, the British Academy, we've got Barclays, we've got Clifford Chance, so both industry partners, academia and civil society non-profit. So it's very much everybody get together talking about AI. So if you're interested to find out more, give me a shout. And also the website is aifringe.org. It's not up yet. It will be up this weekend. So, and lastly, I would like to thank you all. And here's the social media handles. And if you have any questions or follow up, my email is there too. Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Angie. We're going to when it comes to questions, we've got a little bit of time for each question, like maybe 1 or 2 questions. So, have we got any questions within the room? One straight away over there. Got Jess. Are you okay to take a couple of questions? Thanks.
Hey, so I really appreciate the decision-making framework you showed us early on.
Okay.
And especially working on surveillance tech. Can you talk to us a little bit about how and when you make ethical decisions around data set collection? When does consent matter and when is it sort of non-consensual?
What do you mean by data set collection and what context?
So the data sets that fuel these models, are these things that people have opted to donate into a data set?
Okay, so take the NHS ones, okay? So we don't actually store the data set. So these are operational kind of data set that government hold. And our system actually, like, we prefer not to hold any of these. So now in terms of government, how they collect, then that will be sort of their consent process and also how it's being used. So
no guidance around consent on the data model side, just sort of a black box on your side.
Sorry, say again.
So there's no controls around consent on your side, that's sort of owned by the contract holder.
Exactly. It would be the data holder that they will have to, actually, I'll have to say the government side is actually really rigorous. So when we do any of these projects, the amount of like due diligence questions and the process that has to be very, very careful to go through. So yeah, whatever, and if there is anything that like concerns individuals, we always anonymize the data. So actually, there's no anonymized data that goes into our system because we actually don't want to have that issue. So, yeah.
Hi. So you've shown a few really nice examples of specific targeted systems being used by professionals who've been trained and so on. But the last year or so, we've seen a whole bunch of AI technology just available to the public and spending a bunch of time telling us lies, but very confidently about a whole bunch of things. Do you think, as part of the AI industry, is that responsible? Is that irresponsible? Should you as an industry be doing more to combat that kind of thing, or be interested in your thoughts?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So I personally find that quite mind-boggling, because if you think of how powerful these tools are, they have been released without being checked. So if you have if you have a new drug like treatment, you have to go through, I don't know, 10 years of drug development and trials before you actually release it, whereas there isn't for these systems. So, which is why I think a lot of it is government having to set the regulation, how these needs to be done. And I think the challenge is government, it is a very complex topic, and how do you set regulations around it is very difficult. So I think there is some start. the AI Safety Summit, I think will help. And I think industry generally, even OpenAI, they are very aware of it. And how do we need to then get together to talk about how to regulate, what kind of process needs to go through before very powerful tools just release sort of in the wild. And I mean, if you look at their so I guess you guys were familiar with like ChatGPT, GPT-4. Like if you look at their like system card for GPT-4, it's very much kind of tweaked for like safer use, I guess. But I personally don't necessarily think that's enough. It's like there needs to be a real kind of process to go through, is like how these systems should be released, who can use it, and how, should that be, it's like, do you need a license to kind of like you're driving a car? So I think those are all very important questions. And I think, which is why I think we would like in the Fringe that people get into, the same room from the whole society, not just, the industry talk in a silo or academia talk in a silo or civil society talk in a silo, but actually get together, like how do we need to manage this? So.
Cool. So any other questions for the speaker will have to be afterwards, I'm afraid, because we are quite short on time. Bruce is going to get really grumpy with me. Okay, so thank you very much, Angie. Right, I will leave you to plug in. So just so everyone knows, after our next speaker, there will be a short break. So if anyone wants to get it feels like my mic is, because I'm so loud, you're turning down my mic in real time. So there'll be a little bit of a break. Please stop moving it up and down, James. Thanks. So grab a drink from the bar, or is the bar still open, or is it closed? The bar will be open, so grab a drink, a soft drink. Sorry, it's a joke for Hannah. Speaker of the night, we welcome back to Fusion for a second. It's a second, so it's not a third, is it? That would just be outrageous. A second time, we have Luke Henley, who is principal engineer, and I think is that up from, were you staff last time?
No, principal, yeah.
No, same, just got it wrong, Jim. At SideTrade, the French company, which I've come over here to do a little bit of trading and things. So this is one thing I find quite interesting, is big data platforms, marketing integration, and you've said VC firms. Mm-hmm. So I quickly looked at VC things. I love stuff that VC people say, and I looked up things, and it was post money valuation and trickle down pro data rights. Do you know what that means?
No. No idea.
God, it's not just me.
Both well.
Can you demystify VC money, man? It's all a bit of a mess for me. Anyway, right. So here to speak on big data platform stuff. Please welcome to the stage Luke Henley.
Thank you. I think we've got half of SideTrade here, which means I'm going to get haggled probably. The talk follows on quite nicely from Angie's, I think for two reasons. The last time I spoke at Fusion, I think 2 days later we were in the pandemic. So hopefully COVID-20 is not on the way. So yeah, I'm Luke, I'm principal engineer at SideTrade. This character is not me. This is our mascot, she's called Amy. So yeah, I'm here to talk about future big data, mainly from a bit of a commercial perspective. So as principal engineer, I work very close with our CTO. We're a company based in Paris, globally now growing very well. And this is around the inspiration we've taken from the market to sort of drive our big data platform that we've just been building. So since the turn of the information age, internet software has generally started offering very unique data collection opportunities for analysis. So we had World Wide Web, HTML, URLs, HTTP. And then in 97, we had the Google domain was born. We know how this goes. They started to really drive analytics, machine learning. And then with the growth of the internet and internet traffic, we had companies like eBay, Yahoo, Amazon that started to analyze IPs, log data, lots of user stuff to segment their customers. Moving into the early 2000s, we started to see even bigger innovations. So this really became a bit of an arms race. See a big timeline, some really big innovations here. Hadoop, Cloudera was born. Started to see people start to sort big sets of data. Fastest sort of a terabyte by Yahoo. They like to claim all this stuff. And really, this technology has been around now for quite a long time. Became very embedded in systems. Lots of people started to adopt it as very enterprise. So I think that from my perspective and sort of our perspective today, the landscape in data has become a lot clearer. There's been a lot of innovation in this space. And when we started looking for what we need to do, especially to move forward and re-platform in SciTrade, we really started to look into the market. So some of the things you can start to look at, especially when you're at like the commercial side, some people probably heard of the Gartner hype cycle. It sort of goes in 4 stages. There's a technology trigger. This sort of peak of inflated expectations. It's going to solve the world. It's going to solve all of our problems. Then soon after, you hit the bottom and everyone's like, okay, this didn't solve any of our problems. Stuff starts to die off. And then at the end, the technology trigger starts to sort of plateau and we get this plateau of productivity. So we started this process. It's a little bit smaller than here. Hopefully people can see it. This is from 2022, which is where we started. There's some areas around here that started to mature, mainly data lakes, which is this one here, which is in the slope of enlightenment. I'd probably say, obviously, this is June 2022. We're now in 23. This is a little blue dot, and it says sort of 2 to 5 years. Data lakes are becoming much more common. There's data engineering, master data management, quite a lot of different areas in this space. And really, we started to look into here. From a VC firm perspective, A16Z, obviously one of the biggest VC firms in the world, you really start to see the investment start to grow. This is the 2022 version. They call this Data 50. There's a big breakdown. I'll share the slides. Hopefully, we can tweet them. There's also a QR code to the main article that forms it. So we started to look, obviously, we want to be very forward-facing. We want to be at the sort of top end as we grow. So what better place to take inspiration than here? And we're not the only company to do this, which I'll touch on in a second. So there's a lot of different categorizations of the formation of these data companies. There's the AIML space, there's ETL, there's data governance, data observability, lots of data. You start to see some of the big names. So in here, we've got like DBT, which we'll talk about again soon. There's Cloudera still around. Lots of different ones in this space. And this is a sort of pie chart that explains the categorization of all the companies that have been formed in this Data 50. These are the biggest data companies as classified by revenue. So A16Z, as a part of this publication, published this diagram, which is the unified data infrastructure. This is what they believe based on all their market research, all the technology that's available. what they think is the best infrastructure out there. So starting on the left-hand side, you can see there's sources of data that exist. This could be either your SaaS platforms, your Salesforce, ERP systems, log data, essentially any data that you own is in this sources column. Then there's ingestion and transportation. So how do we get this data and move it somewhere, which is the second phase of this unified data infrastructure. And then data storage. There's been a big growth in like Snowflake. People might have heard of Snowflake on cloud. This is growing at a tremendous pace. And underneath storage, there's like query processing. As we mentioned, with all this big data, we need to be able to process this data and query it. So this is this is the next stage. And transformation. So how do we start to transform this data? One of the big changes that A16Z talk about is the pivot from ETL to ELT. So previously you used to have extract, transform, load. Now A16Z talk about ELT, so they put the transformation at the end. Reason for this is that as you have transformation closer to the extraction, you have to start to refactor a lot. So this is one of the big pivots, and you see transformation is one of the last things in this data infrastructure. And then finally, analysis and output. So this is where we start to consume all of this data, either with AI ML models, power like business intelligence, feeding insights back into the application. As I said a minute ago, we're not the only company to use A16Z as a reference for their data platform. GitLab are one of the biggest consumers. They actually used the diagram that I showed and put it on their data engineering handbook, which is public and open source. So if we read this, the mission of the data platform team in terms of GitLab is to build a secure and trusted data platform. This makes it possible for everyone to be an analyst. So that our only limitations are the data or the analysts themselves. They've slightly adopted their model. I'll put a QR code for anyone who's interested. I highly recommend if you want to get into this data platform space, as I say, GitLab open source their entire handbook. It's not just in the data space, but generally speaking, around everything GitLab do, I think they're a really cool company in terms of open source for many reasons. So they follow this similar sort of pattern. They have a lot of sources on this left-hand side. So they've got all their marketing data, finance data, product data, tech data such as logs. They go through an extraction phase. They use Matillion, amongst other things. Sorry, just getting a phone call. Wasn't expecting that one. Then transformation and data warehouse, they use Snowflake as their main data warehouse, and they're moving then into the analytics. So again, we're not the only company to do this. This is one of our inspirations. So moving into building SciTrade's data platform. So this is where we're sort of moving now. So again, we've taken all of this inspiration. How do we start to apply this to SciTrade? So what do we do? We're an order-to-cash company, mainly focused in the B2B space. So we extract a lot of ERP data. We process more than 1 billion B2B invoices. This is $5 trillion in invoice value. We have 34 million buyers in our network, and 17 million of these companies are matched. When we say matched, what we do is we have a big crawling section, which is trying to crawl all the companies in the world, B2B companies, and this is what we call our buyer referential. So what we do is we then match all of our ERP customers, all the ERP buyers to a legal entity, and this allows us to do aggregate computations. So we've managed to match out of the network, out of all the companies we build, we've managed to match around 7 million. So the key thing then is how do we start to really build analysis off of this data? Okay, so as we said, the inspiration. So it looks quite familiar because it's sort of built off of the inspiration that we said. So we have all of our sources on this left-hand side. The key part that I'll probably speak about a little bit here is what we call our data ingestion platform. This is how we get data out of all of our sources and into a target. A little bit about data storage. And again, I'll share the slides, and if anyone wants to look at our version of this, they can look at this offline, but I'll talk a bit more detail. So I'm really going to focus on how we move data. So this is probably the trough of disillusionment. So all of our database is Oracle. We hand build, or used to hand build, or hand crank huge Python scripts that would go and extract all this data through ETL processes. It was all very manual, very slow to build, and very slow to run. We stored this in Postgres, and again, we used to build then our analysis with Python. So in summary, we were moving at a very snail pace. This is across building and generating analysis. In fact, I think we tried to recompute something recently, and it was running for days, and we still haven't managed to do that. So the new version, which is what we call plateau productivity, we're now using some new tooling. We have Debezium, which is a super cool CDC-based tool, which is on top of Kafka. We stream all of our data into a database. We're an on-premise company with all of our data centers based in Paris, so we're a little bit constrained with the tech choices we can make. So we have an MPP database called Greenplum. This is a fully open source MPP database. You can host it. It's node-based, and it's Postgres-based. And then on top of this, we have DBT. I'm going to quickly talk about DBT. It's a bit of a big claim. In my opinion, I used to be from a front-end background. I've moved into data. Now I don't have to make pretty screens for people, which is nice. I can just work in the back end where people don't really see anything, to be honest. So in my opinion, DBT is wrapped for a data engineer. And I'll talk about why. So for a long time, I think it's been really difficult to start to build this process in the data land. Very difficult to test stuff, difficult to build models, difficult to test them. DBT is a complete tool set that manages this. So you can develop all of your code on top of raw data. You can test it, document it, and then deploy all of your models and consume them at the next stage. But it's all built on top of data platforms. It's super smart. DBT is really cool, in my opinion, and it allows us to do some cool stuff with which I'll talk about. So the reason why I think this is like React, the QR code here is their open source Jaffle shop example, which you can just run really easily locally. So you start to build really simple data components. So again, the building up data components was not something that was really easy to do previously in the data engineering world. You used to have lots of different ways to do this. Now you can use this to do this with DBT. You get automatic documentation generation. This includes lineage graphs. So as you start to build up your different data components and reference them, it starts to build the lineage graph automatically for you. You have inbuilt quality testing tools. Testing SQL used to be very hard, as everyone knows. And then you start to break down size. This is sort of the consumption of some of these models. So in terms of SciTrade, how we're now using some of this data, we want to build some like market-winning insights. So we're building modern data architecture. How do we start to use this? We have a public website which is called our Data Lake Explorer, and this shows all of our transactions in the world. And we're focused really on decreasing DSO, which is day sales outstanding. This is our key metric. So we can show sort of by industry, the average days to pay in each industry, how long it takes, and lots of other cool metrics by sector and country. So just to wrap up, with our real-time, with our new data platform, this is the type of stuff we want to do. So we want to build real-time intelligence on this data. So the big data I spoke about, this is what we want to now move into. So we're now streaming data. We were running all these Python stuff. We didn't really extend much of the data. It was really difficult to load new data at this scale. We're now streaming data at a rate of up to 60 million rows. And this is not on like huge infrastructure, to be honest. We're pretty low. It's not batch-based. We're going to use DBT to start to model our network, start to join all this data together, and we start to then moved engineers from having to concentrate on moving the data and building Python scripts. Okay, how do we start to do value add? So all of our data engineering team are now going to be working on value add stuff. This is really important to us. And we can start to do cool things. Now we do this. So we've recently done some AI and ML work for predicting when invoices will be paid. And this is super powerful when we talk about our main use case, which is decreasing DSO. And that's my talk. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you very much. All the things that I'm frightened of. I saw Hadoop in 2009. I was like, what's this? And now look, I still don't know what it is. And Spark, and then about 300 other things that are all hooked together. Have we got any questions to the floor? Like I said last time, we're a bit limited, so we've got space for 2 questions. If anyone, we've got one over there from Indy. Someone whose mind hasn't been completely blown open like mine has.
Great talk, thanks for that. I'm really interested to know when you looked at DBT, did you look at any other alternatives and kind of what made you land with DBT? And what...
In the transformation space?
Yeah.
There are a few. I mean, if we go back to sort of the graph in the transformation space on A16, these are like the most common. I'm just trying to get into there. So data modeling, there's LookML that they recommend. Really, like DBT is sort of taken over. If you go to Data 50, DBT is like the second biggest data company in the world now. They're growing at a tremendous pace. We saw a company open source like GitLab using them, and really we sort of landed there. Our biggest problem was moving data, to be honest. So we didn't really concentrate so much on the transformation because this was really where the market was moving. We wanted to concentrate, so we were doing much more evaluation on moving the data because if we don't have the data in the right place, there's no point with the transformation tool. So there's some cool players in the data replication space we evaluated. So Confluent are a huge player in this space, very expensive. We did a lot of calls with those guys, and they still reach out because they want to sell us a lot. Also, Airbyte. Airbyte are a super cool open source company, a really basic no-code tool to get started. So if anyone wants to sort of move data really quickly, Airbyte, but on the transformation space, we settled DBT very quickly. There is.
Oh, I'm getting older. Anyone else? I have no hands. Right. So, where was that? Was that? Oh, okay. Oh, I think you're just doing it to troll me to get me to like jog to the back. No, I don't need glasses. It's all right. I'm supposed to wear them. Okay, Hannah, I need your glasses.
Great talk. I kind of had 2 questions. So the first question was on your graph with the hype cycle stuff. You kind of had a section that said obsolete before. What was it? Obsolete before plateau? Yeah, obsolete before plateau. Are there any ideas there that you think will make a comeback in 5 years? And the other question is, a lot of your talk you're saying about, we want to involve ML analysis. Are there any kind of tools, are there any kind of specifics that you look for in a tool that support this ML analysis? So are there any database tools that make you go, oh, that's got that functionality that we need for ML analysis?
Tools that make a comeback. There's only a couple on here that are sort of red. The iPaaS data integration. I think iPaaS for data integration, I don't think is dead. I probably don't agree with that one because we're looking at an iPaaS system right now, but maybe we're not looking at the right time. So on that one, I don't think there's any others on here that I'd say. Data ops is like right at the top here, which I don't agree with that. And I think data engineering as a concept is much further along than it is on this graph. So there are a couple of things that are probably I don't agree with here, personally speaking. And what was the second question, sorry?
Just that, so how has the increase in ML models being used for large data analysis affected the database landscape?
I think heavily. I think there's a lot of innovation still happening in this space. I think from our side, like the biggest thing for like the ML side for us is how we prepare the data, clean the data, model the data so that the models are really good. And we're moving much more into this data ops, ML ops space now. I didn't include it in this talk because I think it's a little bit outside the scope, so I'm focusing more on the data. But we're using like Metaflow. But again, in order to like build the models, you need to have the clean data. So I think this is driving a lot of the innovation, if I understand the question correctly. Okay, cool.
Cool, thank you very much. Everything goes in cycles anyway. I'm relearning Cold Fusion. Thank you very much, everyone. Luke Kennedy, give him a round of applause. Okay, so really brief break. Fancy getting a drink, go to the toilet. We're going to be back in 5 minutes, a realistic time for everyone to go. We'll see you back in a bit.
Leo, can someone please do this for me though? Because I need to do a screen drag live. So I basically, because it's a Google Slide link and because I'm on Windows, I need my presenter view so I can have my
Oh yeah,
notes.
I know how to do that.
Thank you. Really, really good help.
Oh, it's already in.
Oh, that's not. Oh!
Oh, was that? This one should be fine.
Yeah, this one's a little different.
Ah, okay. Where's the full screen button?
Do you want F11? No?
There you go. And if I can find the mouse again, there it is. There you go.
Thank you for your help.
You're welcome.
Where's my... There.
Are you clickering?
I'm clickering, but I've got my own clicker.
Oh, so it's like Bluetooth?
Yeah, I've got a little doodah in there. I just want to make sure my hair doesn't cover the mic. Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, take your seats, please. Oh, I sound like a the people in the boxing. Let's get ready to rumble. Okay, I think we're reasonably comfortable. Just for energy reasons, has everybody had a good break? Yeah! Yes, you have. Good. A marvelous we. I don't know what I've got notes here for our next speaker. I think it's just habit that I have to put notes in. I don't really need notes for our next speaker because, it actually says Hannah Mitchell and then in small letters, the boss. So that pretty much tells you everything that you need to know. If anyone wonders who doesn't know, the reason why this exists is because of Hannah, who's just there. So you can do a whoop for that. She's only made one terrible decision in her career, which is to hire me onto the Fusion team. So starting off, Technical Team Solutions was 2013, I think, and you had a funky logo. And I saw that stuff with Hackfronts, and you had like Ghostbusters stuff at the Essex Cinema. That was very, very funky. 2019, actually, when I joined, was when you created the Fusion group. So that's the events and the recruiting. Definitely not recruiting. Right, so I did a bit of a preview from TechMids conference, and it's been honed down. I love this talk because a lot of people have said to me, I don't understand, Jim. Why is our burnout rate so bad? We're losing developers. And you're like, are they happy? I don't know, because they're developers and they're like sheep, so we don't talk to them. Okay. Which Hannah and I were talking about the other day. We're like, why is no one addressing this? So please welcome to the stage for a talk on creating happy at work, Hannah Mitchell.
I'm not. Am I?
Have you attached your mic?
I have unmuted myself. Are you trolling me already? You haven't even started
Right, just
yet.
pipe down.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Sounds weird. Thank you for listening to me. Please don't leave. So today I'm going to be talking about creating happy at work. So I'll keep the intro brief. So my name's Hannah, as some of you may or may not know. I'm one of the co-founders of the Fusion Group. So this consists of Fusion talent, Fusion workshops, and Fusion meetup. Now, some of you may not know this because we never talk about it, but I'm a recruiter. I know. That was the biggest shock, wasn't it? I bet no one had any idea whatsoever. So that might be one of our worst kept secrets, but I promise you I am one of the good ones. So a little bit more, just got to get that in there. Right, so co-founder of the Fusion Group. I'm a growth and retention consultant. So what this means is that I not only support companies in terms of growing their teams, but most importantly, and it is the most important thing, is about how to do it properly and how to retain the talent that you've already hired by looking at things such as culture, positive communication within our organisations. I have also recently qualified as an NLP coach. So this is neuro-linguistic programming. It has nothing to do with data science. Now, this is looking at the reprogramming of our views and understanding of situations. And this has a knock-on effect to helping us communicate effectively, as well as changing our behaviours and reactions to certain things that we face during our lives. So, all of this experience, that was a bit loud, wasn't it? All of this experience has led me here where I am today, talking to you about how we can build and maintain engaged teams and a positive work culture. So, is that my laptop making that noise?
Yes, it is.
Is it? Sorry, I don't know what to do about that. We'll just leave it and pretend it to happen. Okay, so first question that I need to ask you. So put your hands up if you've ever left a role because of any of the following reasons. I'm going to have to just arms straight in the air. Yeah, me, all of them, Tom, every reason, I'm out. Okay, so feeling unappreciated. Oh my gosh, sorry about that noise. Okay, cool. Poor leadership and management. Oh, look at that. That's a big one. Okay. Lack of ownership and opportunity. Okay. And negative environment. Okay. Right, okay. So most of you have left a role due to one or more of these reasons. Now, these were the top answers given to me throughout the last 3 years when speaking to people about why they are looking to leave their current role. And all of these are within our power to change as employers or team leaders or managers. We all have control over these 4 points. So retaining teams has become harder and harder. The job market is really, really competitive. I'm sure a lot of you in this room really know that at the moment. But what are you doing at the moment to try and create a happy and positive work culture within your team and your organisation? That noise is is that my thing? Is that my doodah?
We're trying to stop it.
Can we? Is that where is it coming from? Is it Discord? I've turned my notification. Can you lot stop chatting on Discord while I'm talking, please?
It's how we talk to each other.
Oh my God.
Sounds like a negative environment.
I'm like, right then. Right. Anyway, so today I'm going to give you some ideas in terms of what you can start prioritising when thinking about retaining and growing your team. So whilst listing the beer fridge and the ping pong table and go-karting Fridays might be attractive to some people, you'll find that by looking at the following areas, you will find a newfound respect as a business, as an individual, and as a leader. So this is the happiness method. It's 6 simple but highly effective points that you must prioritise to have a positive work culture. This has been created by yours truly so that every company knows what the industry standard should be when it comes to happiness at work, positive culture, and putting steps in place to improve retention. So it's broken down into 6 parts: leadership, review, opportunity, innovation, momentum, and sanity. And each of those areas drill down into multiple different things. Now, today we'll be looking at 3 of the 6 parts. They're all as equally important though. Before I start to go into a little bit more detail in these areas, you need to be aware of this one crucial point. To resolve retention issues and create happy within a business, you have to be open to making it a priority. Now, priority is a key word here, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on in the talk. But do not start to implement any of the areas of the happiness method if it's not a priority within your team or organisation. Okay, so we're going to kick things off with leadership. Now, this section applies to everyone. There's a difference between management and leadership. Everyone's a leader, and we all have a responsibility to be aware and think about the impact of our actions and what they have on others around us. And also look for opportunities when we can actually take the lead on things. So first of all, don't be like this guy. No one is perfect. No one is perfect. And I've always been a big believer in that there are opportunities for everyone to learn, no matter what stage of your career that you're at. So be open to and welcome those opportunities and challenges. Feedback works both ways. So it's interesting. I was talking to Stuart Langridge when I first wrote this talk, and we were talking about feedback, and a lot of people would say, I can take feedback, I can take it. And then when it happens, it would be interesting to see how many of you could genuinely take that feedback, walk away and do something constructive with it. So be open to receiving constructive feedback. Now, modelling this will benefit you in the long run. So you'll gain more trust and more respect from your team by opening up this kind of conversation. When you show how to take feedback, you're doing one of two things. So you're showing exactly how it's done, but you're also demonstrating that it's a really safe place to have these kind of conversations. Feedback is one of the most powerful tools that teams and organisations do not use to this day. So think about feedback that you get during one-to-ones, think about feedback from exit interviews, how are you using those things? So a tip for the leaders and managers out there, how about at the end of one-to-ones or during one-to-ones, if you don't already do this, why not add the question, what should I stop, start and continue doing as your manager or team leader, whatever your role is? Ask that question, and that again opens up a great conversation with the person that's sitting in front of you. There's a huge section on feedback and how to get the most from one-to-ones in the review section of the happiness method. I can't go into that today, we don't have enough time, but I'm happy to run through that with people separately. If you want to get in touch, I'm fine to go through that, or you can grab me afterwards, but not for too long because I'm dying for a glass of wine and I want to go to the pub. Right then. Next one, understanding leadership styles. Look at all these colours. So I was told that this was like a year 7 project because of all these wonderful colours that I've used. And that's exactly why the slide is here to stay, because I like it. So this slide is about understanding leadership styles now and finding which your style is. For those of you that are new to leadership or don't know much about leadership styles, have a little look. You can use this QR code actually, which will take you to quite a useful page that will list some of the leadership styles and also how you can find your own leadership style. Remember, if you are new to leadership styles, be flexible and adaptable because not every single style will be suitable for every situation. Trial certain things out and don't be afraid to get feedback from your sort of trusted peers or colleagues that might be able to give you some advice on how things went. Another point in terms of leadership is leadership training, and it's something that I feel so passionate about, and I think that sometimes it can be overlooked or kind of seen as a box ticket exercise, something that HR pushes through. However, if you find the right leadership training, it's really, really powerful. There's such a lot that we don't know about the effects of positive leadership, better communication, and getting more from our working relationships. And the topic of leadership itself is huge, and it takes us down a path of understanding personality types, effective communication, and how to build and nurture our teams. There was a Harvard study, which was one of the longest ever done on the same group of people. And this study looked at the impact on the big domains of life. So this was mental health, it was physical health, it was work, and it was also relationships. And one of the biggest findings from that study was the impact of positive relationships and what that impact was and how significant it was on our health and happiness. So if you think about if you can build and maintain positive relationships at work, that person will feel engaged and they'll feel invested and want to do a good job when they're working within your team. Okay. This is one of my favourites, right? Reward and recognition. People see this as an absolute minor point, and it's really not. When people are recognised, they feel motivated to continue to add value. Now, reward and recognition itself is now more important than ever, I would say, now that remote working and hybrid working is just becoming the norm. So here's a question. Don't necessarily need the answer, but I want you to think about it. How often are you telling people that they've done a good job and made a positive impact on your day? Now, this doesn't have to come from a manager, from a leader, from a director. This is people within your team. A good friend of mine is a sergeant at West Midlands Police, and we all know the role of a police officer can mean that you're out all day. So having a one-to-one or sitting down over a coffee and a catch-up can be quite tricky. So what they have an internal system where at any point in the day, they can send what they call a note of recognition to anyone in the force. This is a really simple and a really, really powerful tool. So what I'm trying to say here is that recognising someone when they've made a positive impact, rewarding people, and it doesn't have to be with, you know, great gifts or anything like that. Sometimes it's just that acknowledgement, you've done a really, really good job. It has such a big impact. So don't save these things for, you know, a one-to-one at the end of the week or like a monthly meeting, whatever it is. Do it on the spot. Because if someone tells you that you've done a good job that morning, how do you feel for the rest of that day? And how do you feel for the rest of that week? Next one, get to know your team. So this part is twofold. So it goes in quite nicely from the leadership styles that we spoke about. Now, we know what the power of good communication and relationships can do. So whilst it's good to know what your leadership style is, it's also good to get some understanding of the different personality types that are within your team and the people that you're working alongside. So there's two different ways of doing this. You can look at something more structured, like DISC theory, for example. I know we've had a few conversations about that whilst I've been giving this talk. So this is kind of like a method that's set that kind of identifies predictable reactions and personality traits. I know sometimes the results can be delivered in you being a blue or a red or a green person. Or another idea would be to speed date your team. Anyone up for it? So speed dating your team, just bear with me on that one. I don't mean we all head to picture and piano and right. What I'm saying here, this comes from a really positive experience that we had at the Web Community Leaders Summit that was at Google. It was brilliant. So there was around about 50 to 60 meetup organisers across the UK, and we all had a day to spend with each other to basically collaborate and see how we could make our meetups more diverse, how we could tackle issues like sponsorship and speakers, just those general things that we tend to bang on about. So what they did was they had a big outer circle and then a smaller inner circle, and they moved in opposite ways. And each person opposite each other had 5 minutes to talk about their meetup and find out more about the person in front of them. It was brilliant. It worked really, really well. So you could use something similar to this in your environment. Obviously, respect that some people may not want to go into a lot of detail in terms of their lives and what their experiences are, but open the conversation for those that do. You could even just get a list of 10 random questions that you will find useful in terms of getting that information. This could be about their general likes and dislikes. This could be about their experiences in previous roles, what worked, what didn't work on certain projects, whatever works for you. Okay, the next point we're going to look at is opportunity. Now, I speak to people daily about finding new roles, what they're looking for, and a lot of the time they do question, so what kind of opportunity is available at this company? What opportunity is there? And a lot of the time, what they're kind of nudging at is them being able to move and promote and be promoted through the company. So this could be, can I move into a senior developer role? Can I move into a lead tester role? Whatever that may be. But opportunity is created with ownership. There are other ways of gaining opportunity. Now, from this quote, I just want to highlight the words responsibility and motivation. So when someone has responsibility for a task, they feel motivated to follow up and they want to deliver on that task. It makes sense. We want to do a good job for people. So that in itself is creating ownership and responsibility for someone. You don't have to change the structure of the team to be able to create ownership. So other ideas in terms of creating ownership and opportunity Empower your team. Now, I worked with an incredible director on an internal hiring project a couple of years ago, and she knew exactly what motivated her team. She would let them be the creators of their own role. She'd encourage them to take the lead, to learn from others. She would even encourage them to go and find solutions to the problems that they were facing. Even if this took them out of their comfort zone or their remit, she would let them and encourage them to take it as far as they could. She even delegated some of her daily tasks to the people, so they got a flavour of what her role is like. This left her with a really engaged team, a team that were really invested, really motivated, and worked well together. Encourage and push learning opportunities. Now, this doesn't need to be on the big scale of thousands of pounds worth of courses and certifications. It would be great if every company could offer that, but realistically, they can't. So, learning opportunities are right in front of our noses. So we have things like skills and knowledge transfer. It's basic. Every single day, there are people around you that you can learn from. Also attending conferences. For example, we have TechMids on October the 20th. Perfect example to send the team to TechMids, go and learn something new. Another learning opportunity. Attend meetups like Fusion. What about speaking opportunities? I know we bang on about getting new speakers. Speaking opportunities are fantastic. There's a number of people who will be able to support you in terms of, building that confidence, getting yourself out there, putting something together. Stuart Langridge has an amazing workshop for public speaking. But again, this is someone who's sitting in the community and we could use. Also look at things like hackathons and build it days internally. Like Hack the Midlands, you could just send the team to Hack the Midlands. That would also be another learning opportunity. But can you see what I'm trying to get at? There's loads of simple things out there. And if you make this a priority, you'll get more engagement from the team around you. Talk to your team and find out what their interests and ideas are. So give them a platform to talk about their hobbies and interests. You don't know, you might have someone sitting within your team who could be the perfect person for the next company podcast, the perfect person to write the next company blog post. You might even have someone sitting within your team or company who actually has a great solution for an idea that you can't see past, but they just haven't been given the platform to share those ideas. So make sure you create the platform for open communication. Okay, so I'll try not to lecture you too much anymore. We've got one more bit I'm just going to go through. This is the most important bit of the happiness method, momentum. I touched on it when we spoke about priority and why priority is really, really important. Now, the easiest way to not lose momentum on implementing something new, looking at these initiatives, creating a better positive work culture, is to not overcommit. Do not look at the happiness method and think, right, brilliant, we're going to tackle all those areas, we're going to get them all pushed out, and that's going to be great. Do not overcommit. So do something small and do it well, and then you can build it from there. It's a journey to creating happy and a positive work culture. It's not a race. There we go. That's my one little bit of wisdom for the evening. So take your time, and when you feel something is working well, then you can move on to the next bit. So, building and maintaining momentum. So making happiness and a positive work culture a priority and sticking to it. Okay, Jim. I've got my 5 minutes and you're off. So sticking to it. So there has been, this is a really important point. Now, I have spoken to, in terms of the research that I did for the happiness method, I've spoken to people across all different sectors, not just tech. I've spoken to regional directors, to apprentices and graduates and everyone in between. And everyone has experienced a company who has launched this great new initiative. It's brilliant. They've had employee buy-in. Business pressure arises, and it's stuff like this that tends to go by the wayside. That's the first thing to go. And then this leaves your employees disheartened. Be mindful of the fact that there are probably a number of people within your team and company who have chosen to work with you because of some of the initiatives that you have in place. Do you know, then talking this is just like to the wider everyone in front of me, the reason why the last 5, 10 people joined your company? I bet you probably don't. Have you asked that question? Why did you choose us over this person, over this company and that company? And a lot of the time at the moment, people are asking about culture, values. They're asking about like just the softer side, like what does that company do? Are you a valued employee or a number? And what do they do for you? So nurture what you've created, and then you'll see the benefits that follow. So employee happiness has a direct impact on productivity. It's a fact. There's stats and facts and figures everywhere. Team productivity, company productivity, and also how the company performs against their competitors. There's a really good fact that will pop up in a minute. Assign days to focus on team happiness to keep that momentum going. We can't talk about happiness and positive culture all day, every day, as wonderful as that would be. So why not just pick, it could be 2 hours every fortnight, it could be half a day every month, whatever it is. Keep that conversation, that momentum going. To keep the conversation going, you could always use something and create something like a happiness board. So this will allow people to drop ideas in. You could use something like Trello or a Discord channel or whatever works for you. And then you can also look at additional software tools such as Awardco. That's been recommended in terms of like reward and recognition. Or you could even build your own. I'm sure there's a lot of capable people in this audience that could go and build their own. Okay, so how do we get started? Oh, that is really quick. Okay, so get started by asking yourself the question, could things be better? Refer back to the happiness method and look at the 6 key areas and identify which one is kind of needs a little bit more focus to start off with. So which one do you think could actually be worked on to start off with? Talk to your team and manager and start putting a business case together. Do your own research. There are stats and facts and figures out there all about the impact of positive work culture and employee happiness and what that has on productivity. If you can't get business buy-in, if you do one thing, please just do it yourself within a team. There's nothing to say that as a business, it has to be a business-wide thing. Create a better culture within your team. Facts and figures, please take a photo because these are really, really useful. If you did want to put a business case together, if you want to read it in more detail, because I'm going to flick off this slide very soon. But, you know, stuff like 20% companies with happy employees outperform their competition by 20%. It's massive. So there is no reason why companies and organisations are not taking positive work culture seriously. Okay, what not to do? Right, what not to do is this. Whatever you do, don't do this. Don't bury your head in the sand, go to the pub, have a nice cold pint, wait for it all to blow over, because it doesn't work. It does not work. This is not resolving the issues, okay? From experience, everyone flies out the door on a Friday because the boss is buying the first 2 rounds of beers because you've all had a shocking week. And you know what happens? Monday comes around again and everything is exactly the same. So round up, don't overcommit, create opportunity with task ownership, recognition little and often, it really does go a long way, so be mindful of that, and feedback works both ways. Be the purveyor of happiness within your team, everybody. Go and spread happiness, positive vibes, good culture. Please, let's go and educate people tomorrow. A positive, happy work culture, on a serious note, should be the universal standard now at a workplace. Things have changed, priorities have changed in terms of how people are moving roles, why they're picking companies. So we need to start by thinking about that. And thanks for listening.
Look at this. Dancing like my son does. He just likes a little dance.
You know what I thought you were going to talk about? This has been called a corduroy pajamas.
Stuart called it.
Annika Rice.
Annika Rice.
Yeah,
Challenge Annika. I like that.
Annika. Any others? No. Boiler suit.
Boiler
Yeah,
suit.
I mean, that's
I used to do design and technology in a boiler suit.
Okay, thanks,
I don't
Jim.
think. Can I just say from that, for those, I don't think I said this when you did this at TechMids. Mike, for the first time in about 5 years, my manager at my workplace sent me a Christmas card and said, "Thanks for all your hard work. You're doing a really good job." And I literally cried. And no one had ever done that before to me.
Yeah, see, but it's huge.
It's made a big difference.
Small things, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Right, so couple of questions? Anyone? Oh, there's lots. That was first though.
Hi, thanks for the great talk. That was really interesting. I totally agree with the spirit of what's being said. I think that's definitely the direction that I've seen in businesses that I've been in the past couple of years. And I think the facts that you put up on the screen show that obviously it's worthwhile doing these things. My question is, we're all in the professional classes, right? And we're all relatively well-paid people. Why do you think this hasn't, and as it clearly hasn't, translated into lower paid workers? Thanks.
Into what, sorry?
Into those who are not paid well.
Yeah, okay. So as in like company directors, owners.
I mean, we're seeing unprecedented levels of striking and unhappiness in workforces. So clearly this hasn't translated throughout employment.
Yeah.
I'm just curious why you think that might.
Well, I don't think so. So I don't think it's ever been made a priority, and I don't think it's ever been spoken about. I think what has happened potentially is that when COVID hit, people got a flavour and a taste for a work-life balance. And I'm not saying that COVID was a happy time. It was absolutely dreadful. However, working from home, people started to think about what was important to them, what their values were, and what they wanted from their jobs. I think particularly in the tech industry, there was a huge rise in roles, remote roles. So a lot of people in tech kind of had the pick of the bunch. So companies have had to start thinking about stuff like this. I think on the wider scale, it's not a priority. It's not spoken about enough. But I feel like, and I genuinely believe this, like we're just about to tip into that, where people are going to start talking more about culture, values. Some of the stuff that I mentioned is really, really basic stuff, like sending someone a text. "Oh, thanks so much for helping me with that today. Like that really made my day so much easier." I just don't think people pay attention to it. I think there's an element of people also kind of taking it as like, oh, it's a given, but it actually doesn't happen. So I agree with you. It's so sad. It's so sad, because I could have put facts and figures about the amount of time that we actually spend in our lives at work. And when I say at work, this could be at home, at work, whatever. And we should be thinking, we kind of deserve better. Like, we deserve better environments. We deserve to feel valued and supported. And, so I think me being here and having given this talk and writing the happiness method, this is me I will shout about this until the cows come home to as many people that will listen to me, because it's important. It is important.
Right, we do not have time for a second question. But also, Hannah has already indicated that she is going to be in the pub. With more on that later. So if anyone wants to ask any questions.
If anyone wants to get hold of me, if you're not coming to the pub, I know people have got trains and stuff to get. Drop me an email or Twitter.
Cool. Yeah. Right, big hand for Hannah, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool. So next up, I mentioned Dylan Beattie, who's the sort of the what I regard as the rockstar developer, because he created the rockstar developer language, didn't he? I've never actually seen it in product, but then I met Chris, and then I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's more rockstar developers, and then we started talking about Napalm Death and Bot Will Eat Itself and things like that. So now there's two of them. This is getting out of hand. Now there's two of them. Sorry, terrible Star Wars reference. So our next speaker is Chris Mills, a founder of Mills Docs Limited, family thing, is that fell flat. Don't make joke again, Jim. Hmm?
He's
Actually, that's true, because I'm quite short. So.
Oh no, I mean Chris is really super tall.
Yeah, so it's a bit about like, you know, a bit of a to me to you kind of like. Oh, I didn't realize you got a Dead Kennedys cap on. Sorry, that's completely irrelevant. Technical writer and web development, 20 years of it. One of the opera stuff, right? You just kind of hate the screen at the moment. Opera stuff.
Well, this is going well, isn't it? Piece of shit.
Looks like you need a developer, etc. Oh, some kind of joke about needing technology. I quite like the idea, the actual the gist of the talk being some of the new funky stuff like the transitions API and scroll-driven animations. And I must say, a lot of this stuff someone did a transitions API for Fusion like last year. Who was it? I can't remember. And it just. Yeah, there we go. Jake Archibald, another member of the Britpack or whatever they call it. Anyway, so this is going to obviously blow my mind because I struggle with Flexbox, so I still don't know what I'm doing. The front end is basically a disaster. Who's using Chrome? Chris is twice. Is this because of live coding setup and that sort of thing?
Yes, this is being really shit. Just give me a
Ladies and
second.
gentlemen, friends and enemies, never do live code demos, ever. No, you can. It's just, you know, just expect things to go wrong. Have you got the backup video where you can magically press the button? I hope Chris finishes this soon because I'm running out of things to say. Is that the set date? Is a set date? Why didn't you tell me about this? The next Fusion is on the 23rd of November. Is it here?
Yeah.
It's here. Okay. I missed. I feel really. I had major FOMO at the last Fusion because it was at the Exchange at the University of Birmingham, and I missed out. And it's such a funky space. But if anyone's got any feedback from that. We do want to know afterwards if you're going to be around afterwards, or you want to send it to us. Hands up for the exchange. I can see a few faces go like, no.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Oh, thank God for that. Right.
Ready?
Did you get enough feedback you needed? Right, so for our last talk, everybody, it is Chris Mills on funky front-end stuff that's gonna, I don't understand. It uses the word shizzle, which is the first time I've ever heard the word shizzle in a talk, which is brilliant. Big hand for Chris Mills, everyone.
So shizzle is just, you know, the PG-13 acceptable version of shit, really. So anyway, I'm Chris, and it's lovely to be with you folks. Thank you for welcoming me to your lovely meetup. I am here to talk about a bunch of kind of interesting new school animation stuff that's appeared in browsers in the last year or so. A little bit about me. I've been around on this scene for a very long time now. I think I first started documenting and discussing web standard stuff in about 99, 2000, around the same time that I met Bruce. I haven't been the same since. Basically, I'm not really a developer or a designer. I'm definitely not a designer, as you'll see from these slides. I'm a technical writer, and one thing that I loved from Hannah's slides, it was the whole retention engineer title. I thought that was brilliant. And I thought, well, another term for technical writer should be anal retention engineer. So yes, I work for a giant international conglomerate of one. So I'm probably best known for being the team lead on MDN over at Mozilla. I did that for many years. So anything that's wrong on there, please send me all your hate mail. I left long before they did the AI thing. That wasn't my fault. But we haven't got that much time. So one last thing. I'm also a heavy metal drummer and now guitarist. So if you come and talk to me afterwards, please speak slowly. Yeah, let's carry on. So I'm going to bring to you some information about all of these lovely animation techniques that we now have available in browsers. along with some really fucking awful animated GIFs. This was probably the worst one I could find. Don't you just want to punch that GIF? So view transitions first. And to go through this, the idea that I'll be doing, I'll be going through sort of, you know, what we had already and what the new technology allowed us to achieve in each case. View transitions, you know, the idea that you want to sort of have a nice smooth transition between changes on a web page. Been around for a while, but it was really bloody awkward for years. Having to deal with, you know, transitioning out the old state of the DOM, transitioning in the new state of the DOM, having two versions of the DOM kind of in existence at the same time, all sorts of awkwardness, particularly lots of accessibility issues were generated by that. So, but we now have view transition. And I am just going to go through a couple of brief demos here to show you what I mean. So with hardly any code at all, oh, that's a bit small, we can get really nice kind of, I don't know why that's flipping weirdly like that. That must be something to do with the connection. But anyway, it should be looking really smooth, but it's not. I love live demos. But yes, anyway, that was terrible. But anyway, the idea being that you can get nice smooth transitions. I mean, there what you should have seen was a lovely fade, crossfade between the images and the captions and things. But view transitions makes this really easy. So it's pretty much just about this amount of code. So display new image could basically be any function that you want to use, which updates the DOM from the old view to the new view. And what you do is you pass that into this start view transition method. And this is the key method behind view transitions. And that's pretty much all the code you need to create like a simple, nice view transitions on your website. Now, to talk a little bit about what happens when this is run. So when start view transition is called, the API first of all takes a screenshot, just like a photo of the old state of the DOM. Then the callback that's passed to that then is invoked. And that causes the DOM to change. And when that's run successfully, a promise fulfills. There's a view transition object, which kind of acts as your sort of state object for what's going on. Promise fulfills, and at that point, you can run some JavaScript to reply to that. So next thing that happens is the API then captures the new state of the page as a live representation, and it constructs a pseudo element DOM tree, which looks like this. So the idea of this is the key ones here are the transition old and transition new pseudo elements, and they represent the old state of the DOM and the new state of the DOM. And that's what the browser uses to apply the crossfade animation. But of course, you can also then use those to apply your own custom animations and say, well, I don't want a crossfade, I want some other sort of transition. So it works really, really quite nicely. Just going back to this again so I can find my speaker notes, because this shit is quite complicated. I basically copied all of this crap off MDN, it's brilliant. So after the pseudo element tree has been generated, another promise fulfills, and that's basically, you know, the animation is now about to run. This would be the ideal time for you to run some JavaScript to do some sort of really complex JS-powered animation, if you want to. And then at this point, the animation then runs. So in the case of the default, you know, the old state transitions from opacity 1 to 0, and the new state transitions from opacity 0 to 1, or should I say, animates. And that's the crossfade that you see by default. And then at the very end of that, a promise fulfills to say, yep, animation's finished. And you can, again, use that to respond to that if you need to. So we've already seen the pseudo element tree. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned here is, you know, well, what happens, this is fine if you just want to have anything that's changing in the DOM during one transition using the same animation to transition, but what if you want different transitions for different parts of the page that are changing? Well, what you can do is you can set this view transition name property, and you can give different elements a specific name to say, well, we'd like these ones to transition differently. And how the browser handles that is it builds a slightly more complicated pseudo element tree with a different section for each of those named
transitions. So, you know, it logically follows that you can just apply different animations to the different ones. So, you know, I'd like my figure caption to animate like this instead. Now, given that we have very little time, I'm now going to move on to scroll-driven animations. And I really tried hard to find a better one. I was looking for some sort of animated GIF of him having his spine removed, but I couldn't find one. So we'll have to stick with this. Anyway, scroll-driven animations, again, you can't look at a single website without seeing some kind of animation happening as you scroll through the page, blah, 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 blah. We're quite sick of it, quite frankly. It's a very common use case. And the problem is, of course, you've got all sorts of complex JavaScript trying to keep control of all of this stuff, when it's being run, where it's being run, yada, 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 all quite inefficient. But we've now got scroll-driven animations to deal with that. And the idea is that instead of, you know, the default state of an animation is it progresses according to the passing of time. Instead, a scroll-driven animation progresses according to the scrolling of a scrolling container on your site. And that's basically it. And there's two flavors. There's scroll progress timelines, which are literally just that. It's like, as you scroll the scrolling container, the animation of a certain element will progress. So kind of as you scroll the scrolling container, you can scrobble backwards and forwards through the animation. View progress timelines are a bit different. Instead, they allow you to progress an animation based on the appearance of an element and its change in position through a scrolling container, which in a way is kind of the more useful one, really. It's kind of, you know, that's the more common use case you see. You know, I've got to a certain point, a thing appears and dazzles me of advertising or whatever. And you can control this stuff using CSS or JS. Now, let's attempt another live demo, shall we? This is bound to go well. So this is a nice simple reading progress indicator. So as we're scrolling down, we're just animating that top box up there. We're just animating that transition. And then slightly more complicated one. I really, really like this one. So as we're scrolling down, we're just transitioning the position of those. And that's really, really rather nice. I didn't write any of these. As I say, I'm a terrible designer. So to look at how we achieve this, the idea is, so this is a named scroll progress timeline. And the idea is your container here is basically your element on your page that's scrolling, whichever one that is, and you give it a scroll timeline name. Then on the element that you want to animate, you just give it a normal CSS animation, except you add animation timeline and you give that the name of the scrolling container that you tagged earlier with that name. And at that point, this element is animated based on the progress of the scroll bar on that previous container that we looked at. There's also an anonymous version. So in this case, you're not setting up a specific name for the scrolling container. What you're doing instead is using this scroll function. And depending on the arguments you pass to the function, the browser itself chooses the most appropriate scrolling container on the page. So, you know, nearest, for example, is the nearest ancestor that scrolls, and block means you want to progress the animation based on the vertical scroll bar as opposed to the horizontal scroll bar. Okay, let's look at a view timeline demo. And I'll just look at one here because, again, this is another one of Bramus from Google's demos. And he's recreated that very famous Apple effect, the cover flow effect. So, you know, each one of these is represented by an element, and the animation is based on the position along the scrolling container horizontally. And I love the fact that he's also used scroll snapping to make sure that every time you stop scrolling, it snaps to one in the middle. Scroll snapping is also nice. Hello, sir.
I'm so sorry.
Can we add jank? Yeah, let's add some jank. Oh, that's disappointing, isn't it? That is very disappointing. I will phone the jank fairy and complain. Anyway, View progress timelines. These behave quite similarly, except you're not selecting the scrolling container that you want to use to progress the animation. Instead, you're selecting the element whose progress through the scrolling container you want to progress the element that you're actually animating. And that's a little bit, but there you go. In this particular case, what we're doing is we're saying, we're using that's the same element. So the element that's being animated is also the same element that's progressing through the scrolling container, which progresses the animation. But you could have those as two different elements. You could have a different element scrolling through the container, which makes a different element animate. So those do not have to be the same container. And again, you can also choose to do an anonymous one. So probably really running out of time, but I'm not really watching. There's a whole lot of other different options associated with this. You know, one thing you're probably thinking is, well, what if I don't want the animation to start at the beginning of the scroll bar and end at the end of the scroll bar? Yeah, you can change that totally using things like animation range that we see here. Now, I'm not going to attempt to explain this because it's really quite bonkers. Instead, I will just show you a visualization. So again, another quite nice demo from Bramus. And why is, oh yeah, that's fine. So the idea being that if we have animation start and animation end, animation range start and animation range end set to cover 0 and cover 100%, you'll see here that what that means is the animation starts at the point where the element enters the viewport, so it enters the area of coverage, and it finishes at the point where it's left the viewport. But you've got all sorts, you know, you've got all sorts of other keywords for different areas, like contain is, well, it's actually contained rather than covered. And then if you set the percentage to 50%, you'll see that, at this point, instead, the animation doesn't begin until it's 50% of the way through the contain area. So that's how they chose to allow you to control where the animation begins and ends. Anyway, moving on. Just a quick mention that you also have a JavaScript version. So you create a scroll timeline or a view timeline object by saying, you know, the source is the element that you want to scroll. This is the axis that we want to have progress in the timeline. And then you just add that timeline as an option to your Web Animations API animate method. Right, I also wanted, coming to the end, to talk about the Popover API. Another great Elon animated GIF there. So popovers are another kind of classic use case that we do all the time. Now, the main difficulty with popovers historically has been, how do you guarantee that you can get your popover to definitely appear on the top of everything else going on the page without fail? That's kind of like one of your key problems. But the Popover API, it used to be called the Pop-up API until someone said, well, actually, they don't always pop up, do they? Sometimes they come from the side. It was the anal retention engineer in the house. So they changed it. But yeah, they provide a really easy way of controlling and ensuring this. So, you know, to give you a brief idea, very, very simple demo. The essence of it is just this. You can show popovers and you can hide them again. That's basically it. That's all the API actually does. But you can imagine you can certainly add to that. You've also got the option to create auto popovers and manual popovers. The difference being that you've got this thing called light dismiss. So one of the expected behaviors of a popover tends to be that you can press the escape key or just click somewhere outside it to dismiss it, which is what the light dismiss is. That's what an auto popover does. Whereas manual popovers, you can't do that too. So that's when you want something where you think, well, I don't want this to be just dismissed. I want to force someone to look at this for however long until I decide to use a set timeout to get rid of it or something like that. So that's the difference between those two. So to give you an idea of how that's done, this is the HTML for popovers, dead easy. That creates a popover plus a popover button to toggle it on and off. You just declare the div as a popover with the popover attribute, and that immediately display nuns it. And then you say to the button, well, my popover is the target of this button, and then you can use the button to toggle it. You can also do, you know, I'd rather have a hide and a show button rather than just a toggle button. Zip through that because it's a bit dull. And then JavaScript, there's JavaScript to do all of this stuff as well. So you can have things like popover, toggle popover, and hide popover, and show popover to do all of those popover-y things with them. Now, I glossed over that quite quickly because the real point of this, you're thinking, well, there's not much in the way of animation there, is there, Chris? This is supposed to be a talk about animation. And yeah, when I first documented this stuff on MDN, one of the first things I said to the spec engineers was, wait a minute, you can't animate them in any way. What? Surely people want to animate their popovers. And they were like, well, yeah, it's quite hard at the moment because, you know, you can't animate to and from display none, which is how they're shown and hidden. And in addition, when a popover is shown, it's put into display block, but it's also put into this thing called the top layer, which is a kind of a internal browser concept. But basically, it's a layer on the page that is guaranteed to be put above everything else that appears on the page. And the trouble with the top layer is that when you remove something from the top layer, it instantly disappears because of the way it works. And then related point, you can't animate an element that's instantly when it's only just appeared in the DOM. And that's because of a thing called starting styles. You don't have any explicit starting style defined for an element to animate or transition from when it's first been declared. So 6 to 9 months down the line, they fixed all this crap. And so this is stuff that I'm literally just documenting on MDN now as we speak. So this is hot off the press, as it were. So display none and content visibility hidden are now animatable to and from, which is really quite nice because it's been a pain in the ass for years. And what they've done is they've basically turned them into discrete animations. So a normal discrete animation means that when you animate it, it flips between two states halfway through the duration of the animation. What happens with these two is a slightly special case. What they've done is they've made it so that it will flip at 0 or 100% appropriately to make sure that it's visible through the whole animation. So for example, if you're animating from display none to display block, it flips from none to block at 0% and then stays visible all the way through the animation. And that may sound a bit weird, but it's quite useful actually, because if you want to say, you know, display none something to immediately remove it from your UI, but you want to nicely fade it out or something, you need to have the display none as block whilst it fades out, so it doesn't just go and disappears. That's basically the idea. So we also have a thing called starting style, and that's a new app rule that allows you to explicitly set the starting animation in the case of something like, you know, an element that's only just been added to the DOM. And then they also have this transition behavior allow discrete option that you've got to set for discrete things like display block that you want to animate using a transition. I'm not exactly sure why, but there's just some weird setting that turns discrete animations on. I don't really have an answer to that yet. So to give you a bit of a demo on this, this now allows you to do things like this. So this is something I've created. This is a Flex container that starts off empty. And as I create new content, this is creating elements and putting them into the Flex container. But it's animating them instantly from not having existed beforehand, which wasn't really possible before that. And then when I remove them with the nice little exit buttons, it's animating, amongst other things, from display block to display none. So this is now possible, which is quite nice. And then what I'm doing is I'm using a timeout to sort of make sure that the animation is completely finished before I then remove it from the DOM completely. So it's quite nice to be able to do this stuff at long last. So what did I talk through there? Yeah, that's pretty much what I said there. You'll see that's what it looks like. So you've got the transition with the display specified in the transition and the allow discrete. And that's what the starting style looks like. You have to make sure that you apply it below. Oh, thank you. You have to make sure you apply it. You put that below the actual original div rule. Otherwise, that will override it because they're the same specificity. But apart from that, it works fairly well. And then just one more. This is a demo that Una from Google wrote, you can now also animate popovers, except I'm kind of lying because that's actually a dialogue. That's a popover, but dialogues and popovers both use the top layer, so they both have the same problem. So you can see now that we can now animate popovers. You'll see that if we don't include, oh, this is something else that I didn't talk about. The overlay property now exists. This is like the fourth part of this whole weird conundrum. Now, the overlay property specifies whether something that's being put in the top layer actually appears in the top layer or not. You're not allowed to set that in your CSS per se, but you can include it in your transitions list. And what it basically says is defer the removal of this element from the top layer until the animation's finished. So bizarrely specific. And if you don't include that, if you turn the transition overlay off, you'll see that it just kind of disappears immediately and the animation's a bit crappy. So that's basically what that achieves. Okay, I think I'm probably well out of time, so I'm going to slip past these last two boring code slides. And yeah, I think I'm done. So thank you very much for listening, folks. And the slide should have been passed on to you. And yeah, thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. For code of conduct reasons, can I just like obscure the swearing?
Okay.
Oh, that must have looked quite silly there. We've got time for one question, I think, because we're sort of wrapping up quite quickly. The hand went up first here first, and I'm sure that is this a stupid question? You come into the pub afterwards?
Yeah.
Okay. Why not be? So, if there are any more questions, so we've already got one official question happening.
Hi there. So sorry about the jank thing earlier. Very, very disappointing.
No, it's cool, man.
The quick one on the resources. So everything you just showed there. So for example, I really like that. That was an amazing resource with the animations where you could see the sort of content cover or whatever, where you could see where the animation was.
Oh, it's really good.
Is that on the resources list that you just posted? Is it all on MDN? Or?
It is all available through these resources, yes. And I've already passed Hannah the slides, so she can pass it out to you all. So, yep.
That's all, everything. Thank you so much.
Yep. Cool.
Short and sweet. All right.
Oh, phew, that was simple.
How do you feel about Bitcoin? Right. So, a huge round of applause for Chris Mills, everybody. So it comes to that time where the hourglass flows and things like that, which means that we need to wrap things up. So I'm going to do a last bit of hype for the things that make this happen. First of all, to the Fusion team, and by that I don't mean me, I mean Hannah and Andy who run it. Woo! The people at the moment that make it happen are InfoBip, so let's hear it for InfoBip. Woo! And obviously our speakers. Thank you very much for coming. Tell your friends to come to other Fusion things. And also, yes, regarding the Birmingham tech ecosystem, yes, please come to the other events, the .NET staff, the Manage Ops, oh God, there's too many things to remember. Brum PHP, Hack the Midlands, keep everyone happy. Right, so we are going to, for anyone that wants to stay for the official after party, don't get your hopes up too much. We're going to go to Cozy Club. If you want to know where Cozy Club is, then keep an eye on anyone in the Fusion shirt. That's Hannah, Andy, and me. But the last person, thank you, all of you for coming. Thank you very much. Good night.